Thanks for tuning in to the Animal Control Report podcast, where we help debunk the dog catcher stereotype. A lot of times people think it's the dog catcher when they hear about animal control officers, but here on the Animal Control Report, we change that by taking you inside the day-to-day operations of animal control officers. Not only will you hear stories of animal control officers, but you'll hear from industry experts as well. We are also part of the Keep It Humane podcast network. We have some amazing partners there, so check them out at keepithumane.com/podcast network. You can listen to all the animal control and animal welfare related podcasts there. And let's continue to help people help animals. Welcome to the Animal Control Report with your hosts,
Ashley Bishop.
and Daniel Ettinger. How's it going, Bishop?
It's going.
Okay, just going.
I'm hoping to get off light duty soon here.
For those of you that doesn't know, I'm telling you, I can't talk ever. That don't know, just Google Ashley Bishop, Wisconsin, and you'll understand. You'll understand. He has a lot going on. Also, you got to check out our website, keepithumane.com. Please check out today's Amazon Prime Day, so there's a discount on some of the products on the website. So that's exciting, especially if you want one of those new catch pull self-defense keychains. Go there and check that out. Also, check out all the socials. Just punch in Keep It Humane and/or Animal Control Report and be part of the social media following that we have. Our the Animal Control Report on Facebook there was a video, I don't know if you saw it, where if you haven't seen it, go to it because it's still pretty relevant. This person goes and knocks on the door and they're like, "I'm a vet tech in your neighborhood and I'm calling animal control because your dog was out." And there's a lot of comments and participation in that one. So Ashley, if you
I
get
don't
it,
know how I missed that.
I don't know. You probably don't even follow it, to be honest.
Oh, yeah.
Also, did you know I am today's years old? How do you say that? Today years
Today,
old.
years old.
When I found out there's a thing
There's
called a
words too.
bumblebee bat. Have you heard of this bumblebee bat?
No.
If you're watching on YouTube or whatever you're watching on Spotify, it is literally the size of a bumblebee, but it is a mammal. It is the smallest known mammal by length, and it's argued that it's the smallest known mammal by size, other than some shrew. But outside of that, it is now might be my favorite animal on the planet. I'm in the process of moving, and I'm telling you, like, trying to move and and I know we've talked about this on the show before, but trying to move with a pet if you do not own, landlords, y'all suck. If you're a landlord and you're listening right now, I don't like you because you always want to not rent to somebody that has a well-behaved animal.
Yep.
So I'm just putting that out there that makes me angry.
And there are things that landlords could be doing that could make renting to pet owners a whole lot easier
Huh.
and would make communities have better revenue for their animal licensing, like landlords requiring licensing, thereby requiring that the vet has at least seen the animal once at bare minimum every 3 years for a rabies vaccine that they are guaranteeing is being done.
Well,
Just some food for thought.
just some food for thought. Well, I think we should introduce our guest. I'm excited about this interview. And so let's introduce Paulette Dean. Thank you so much for joining us.
My pleasure. Thank you.
Not to be confused with Paula Dean. I'm sure you get
No,
that a lot.
I do. And I tell people, no, I'm not related. I didn't get her money. I got her hips. There's a difference.
Funny.
Paulette, will you do a favor for us since you asked for a very minimal introduction and we're happy to do that, but just give the listeners your background and just so they get an understanding of who you are, and then we can talk about what's going on.
Okay. I have been the executive director of and the humane investigator for the Danville Area Humane Society in Danville, Virginia since 1992. So that's 32 years.
Okay.
We have the public contract to operate the city shelter and have done that since 1984. I was on the board at the time. when we took over the contract. We have built the shelter through grants and donations, and we have given it as a gift to the city. No taxpayer money. We do get taxpayer money to operate the shelter, but we do have to heavily subsidize. So that's Paulette Dean in a nutshell. I'm an old maid, and I'm loving life.
And just for clarification, I am not from Danville. That was
Really?
that was a joke. But I know that landed. That really landed.
Well, you need to come visit.
I would love to. I'm actually from Pittsburgh, PA, originally, so it's not
Oh,
too far from.
okay, yeah, just drive on down.
That's impressive though that you've got 32 years in the shelter.
You've seen
How
a
have you
lot.
avoided burnout?
Um, I think that many times I have reached my limit, but okay, I'll just say it. I am a person of faith, and I believe that the animal's future will be better than their present, and it's an honor to be a part of that.
Okay.
Besides, chocolate never hurts, right?
That is very true. My husband may have just purchased me 3 bars of it,
There you go.
like big bars.
Mm.
With you
Oh,
having that much experience, so you said you were actually on the board in 1984 before you became the executive director. What
Yes.
are some of the main changes that you've seen over this 3-decade, I mean, at that point, 4-decade period? That's amazing just to think about it. Like 4 decades of animal welfare. What are some of the changes, good and bad, that you've seen?
Well, I can speak to Danville mostly. There is more awareness of animal issues in Danville, and that is good. When we took over operation, um, no one cared. As long as there wasn't a stray in their yard, they were fine. But I have been able to watch the progress of and I'll just call it the no-kill movement. And that is why I am hated among some circles, because I have seen how it started, how it hasn't worked, the consequences that it has led to. Um, and I think that that's probably the major change I've seen. Now, Virginia actually has very good animal protection laws, and we have been proud to be a part of getting those passed too. So when people say you need stronger laws, no, we need more responsible owners, and we need, well, our animal control officers are very good at enforcing the law, and our judges are very good. I am lucky.
so tell us a little bit more about the demographics there. What how many people by population do you cover and how many animals do you see come through your shelter in a year?
The city of Danville has about 50,000, give or take. In Virginia, a city cannot be part of a county. They're just different localities. So we are surrounded by the second largest county in Virginia. The second largest county in Virginia, and that is very rural. But Danville started out as a textile tobacco city. And when textile and tobacco left, we went through a big, huge economic crisis, and city council and city administration have been very good over the last several years at reimagining Danville. And so we're in transition. And it used to be that we had an older population, but now we have young professionals moving in. And that's wonderful because they come with fresh ideas and fresh energy. The number of animals, the most animals we've ever seen at the shelter in a year's time was 6,000. And that was before we had two major additions. At the time we took in the 6,000 animals, we had 28 dog runs and 28 cat cages. That was a difficult year. Now we had a decline. Now we get an average of 2,500. We were up by 1,000 this past year. And that's not surprising because 2023 was just a horrible year for every shelter, public and private, and every foster-based rescue group.
I want to get into the article that many people may have seen that are listening to the show, and you can just Google Danville Animal Shelter. We're not going to read that article. It's actually fairly long, and it gave you an opportunity to really defend, your stance. And I think it's important for our listeners to know. And I don't want to speak for anybody else on the show. I've always we've had discussions with people from Best Friends Society, Animal Care Society. We've had other people on the show that don't support the language. And I just don't understand why we can't find some sort of middle ground where we're not creating an environment where it's either you're with us or against us. And it sounds like, to be honest, and I'm stealing this from the internet, but they've made you the Danvillian. I don't understand. Reading the article kind of was surprising how it was almost you were pretty much given an ultimatum that if I read it right, if you don't do X, Y is going to happen, and Y started to happen. And so I'd really love to give you an opportunity to chat about what happened and how we can kind of get your story out there.
Okay. In November, I was contacted by a representative of Best Friends, centered in New York, actually. And the reason why, I can only assume the reason why the Virginia representative didn't call me is that I had known her for many, many years. And she had originally been with the Lynchburg Humane Society and then Pennsylvania County Pet Center. And I had seen the problems that were caused there. So I was contacted in November, and it was a very open and honest conversation. I did not want to have it, but I took her phone call and I told her that not only had Best Friends been following us for many years, but I had been researching them for many years. And I was quite frank about what I thought was wrong with concentrating on numbers and TNR programs and managed intake. I said I was there from the beginning. Attended those training conferences when all of this was introduced in Virginia, and that was back in the late '90s, early 2000s. So she said, "Well, what can we do to help? May we transfer cats to your shelter?" And I said, "Will you sign an agreement that they will be inside only cats?" And she said, "I'll have to get back with you, but generally Best Friends does not sign any agreement." I didn't hear from her, and we did not transfer cats. Then in Virginia, and the reason why it's so easy for Best Friends to get information is in 2002, I believe, the Virginia law became that all releasing agencies defined as public and private shelters and home-based rescues needed to publish an annual report on the Virginia Department of Agriculture and Consumer Services website with intakes and the outcomes of that, the final disposition of the animals. And so our information is out there. And we were actually very much in favor of that law because we thought, well, yes, let's talk about the problems. Let's let the public know that we're getting a lot of animals that shelters just cannot take care of. But what we didn't foresee, and we should have, is that those reports became tools to vilify. So I always wait because I don't know why. I wait until about January 30th to post our annual report. The deadline is January 31st. And just a few days after that, the young woman called me again from Best Friends. And this time her tone had changed a little bit. She said, "We are not pleased with your report." And I said, "Yes, 2023 was a very bad year." And she said, "So what is going to happen now is we are going to send you an offer of support." And I said, "Okay, what does that mean?" And she said, "Well, you'll just get it in an email, and your deadline to answer will be March 1st." And I said, "Well, what's going to happen if we don't accept the offer?" And she said, "Make no mistake. We will not forget. We will not go away. We will do what it takes to get you to accept that offer."
Hmm.
So we did get the offer. It was, it asked us to do two things that we knew that the Virginia Attorney General had already said a public shelter could not do. And it also would have put us in the horrible position of turning away animals. And we are an open admission shelter. So we declined. The morning of March 1st, our attorney sent the letter declining the offer, and we waited. We didn't have to wait long. During that time, we bought full page ads telling what it would take to get us to become no kill. I hate that term. And we did a lot of groundwork. I talked with business people and with the public and with city council, with city management, and I told them what was coming around the bend. And sure enough, it came. And it came with a veracity that I didn't even expect. It's been brutal.
I- I'm speechless, Dan. Like, for them to have said that they were just coming for her, and especially with it essentially being illegal what they're asking for and what they want you to do, and the attorney saying, "No, this can't happen." How does that even happen? Like,
Well,
how is that okay for them to do that?
because other shelters, and I love my colleagues, but other shelters do not pay attention to that Virginia General Assembly, the two opinions, one in 2007, one in 2013. And it involves public shelters doing TNR and also public records being held by a third party. But I'm a big believer that the best way to stay out of trouble is, number one, to obey the law, and then to obey state regulations, and then to be true to your policies and guidelines and apply them across the board. So you cannot be accused of any kind of discrimination about anything, financial or whatever. You just have these policies in place and then you obey them.
Have you
So
have you had a chance to talk to your Virginia friend that's with Best Friends about this?
no,
Okay.
no, she is she is very much involved in it. And what they have done, one of our transfer partners um, is a private shelter up in Fairfax. And their director is actually very much a boots on the ground down here in Danville, um, just keeping everything stirred up on social media. And so they have started a Danville Deserves Better campaign, and people with signs, they say, "We want to help the shelter." Well, okay, yes, yeah, I'll take a sign. Sure, the shelter needs my help. I'll put a sign in there. And then going door to door, um, and just saying, "Danville's euthanasia rate is unacceptable. We want to get it better." Well, so do we. But we believe that they are not going about it correctly.
If you,
Um,
I just did a Google, I just did a Google search of Danville Deserves Better, and on,
It was the
well,
first thing that popped up for me. I don't know about you. All I
well,
had to do is
what,
Danville D.
what's ironic about it is the day this episode airs, They are encouraging people to go to the city council meeting in Danville to support Danville Deserves Better. So I want to back up a little bit, and because I think, and we can get into the numbers aspect of it if we want to. I know no one on this podcast wants to euthanize any animal. There's no one here that's like,
Right.
let's do it. I will say, and I'm not going to name names or organizations, but I have heard people in certain organizations say things like, someone like you, Paulette, um, your methods are archaic just because you've been in the profession for 40 years, which isn't fair, because if you've been in the profession for 40 years, I would imagine you've seen a lot and have been able to evolve and create best practices that work for you and your shelter. One thing that we forget when we talk about these situations is every shelter is different. Every community is different.
Correct.
And so what may work in rural New Hampshire may not work in rural Virginia. And something that was said, or you mentioned, and I also read it too in the article, was uh, basically how you said in that conversation that representative told you that they were not happy with your numbers. You might have said it a little bit differently.
Mhm. Yeah, that's what they said. I don't know, all kinds of paraphrases of that, but yes, and they said that it was well, in conversation she had said it's unacceptable.
But my question to you, and to you as well, Ashley, what makes them the governing body?
That was my question too.
And that was my question, and that's what a lot of people are saying in Danville. The campaign going door to door may have started out saying we want to help the shelter and they're not letting us, but it took a very ugly, in my mind, point of view when, and Danville, I've been around so long, and I graduated from high school here. We moved here when Daddy retired from the military, and so I've been here. I know people, and they would call and they would say, "You know what those people are saying about you? They are saying that you are old and senile." And I thought, well, on any given day, 50% of that may be true, but and that their goal is to get rid of Paulette. And I'm not surprised by that. But then to go door to door and accuse me of embezzling money, pocketing money from fundraisers, no, no, that is just ridiculous. We lost a kennel attendant, a very sweet, young, gentle, wonderful kennel attendant who lives. She's the goddaughter of our shelter manager and her husband. And our shelter manager, by the way, has been with us 30 years. And so Mia had gone home from work, and one of the best friend's guys walked past no trespassing signs in their yard. She was taking out trash, and he called her by first and last name. He said, "You're Mia and you work for the Humane Society." And it scared her. So she called her mother, and her mother said, "You have got to quit work." Um, we have we've gone through campaigns before. 4 years ago, actually, a woman came to the shelter. Um, it was not from best friends at that time. There were best friends people involved in a meeting to bring about, I think the minutes of the meeting said, until we can get people to stop seeing Paulette as the benevolent animal advocate in this area, nothing will change. So we have to destroy her reputation. And actually, a girl spent time in jail because she did, in fact, come to the shelter. She tried to push one of our employees down a rocky hill, and she tried to hit me with her car.
My goodness.
And so this is why we are so very aware of the ugliness of this campaign. And when now best friends would never do this, but they let these comments stand. Paulette Dean deserves to go to hell. Paulette Dean, we're coming for you. It's time for Paulette to go to the eternal hell. And when she is assigned to whatever level of hell she is, I hope that every animal she has ever killed is there to greet her. And that, such is the rhetoric.
Do you find that that's more from people acting on their own accord? They're not necessarily affiliated with any organization. It's just they run with it after after that information gets out.
That is correct. And the director of the shelter in Northern Virginia has we at one time had to get a cease and desist letter because on the public sites she was accusing us of doing something illegal, and I even said, that's not true. And so we had to get an attorney to, I mean, really, people, animals
There's
are not numbers. And, out of all this, I have lost complete faith in the Mahatma Gandhi um, quote that we all know, and I probably won't be able to quote it word for word, but the moral compass of a nation, the moral progress of a nation can be judged by the way its animals are treated.
Yep.
No, because I have found that people who profess to love animals the most are very inhumane to their fellow creatures, the humans.
Hmm.
All of this is very interesting. As I'm listening to you, Paulette, I'm also reading the Danville Deserves Better website, and they specifically have a paragraph, and I quote, "We do not protest, bully, make negative public comments," which that gets me, "or issue threats of any nature whatsoever towards individuals or organizations, including DAHS shelter leadership, their staff, or elected officials. Our objective is to support these individuals and organizations so they may better support the animals of Danville, and creating an atmosphere of hostility is neither kind nor supportive."
And you know why they posted that? Because our shelter, our city manager, and I've told him he's a hero. Our city manager became so disgusted. I mean, they were even waiting at city council members' homes. And, so city council felt harassed and bullied. And so Mr. Larking wrote a letter to or an email to best friends. And he said, when you came to Danville, I told you I did not want it to be ugly. I did not want it to be personal. And so they issued that statement because they knew the bullying wasn't working. Even people who would be very much in the no-kill camp, if they are a reasonable person, they do not like the bullying that's going on.
Do you
So
go
go
ahead?
ahead, Dan.
I,
Nope.
I'm just is befuddled a word?
No,
Because
but it is now.
well, apparently shrew is a little mouse, and I thought it was a bird, so I'm not doing well. This
I wasn't going to say that.
you should
That's why I'm
call
like,
that.
what are you talking about?
That's the name of the game on this podcast is to call me out. No, this is a hard place to be in for you, and it sounds like I don't feel like enough emphasis was put on best friends coming in and understanding your situation. All from what I see in the article and from this conversation, it just appears that they're just looking at the numbers versus, hey, Paulette, can we spend some time with you and your team and understand what's going on or how you operate? And it just doesn't sound
What
like
would work best?
because at the end of the day, and I think you were quoted this in your article, is the reality is we put all this time and emphasis on this live release rate, but where is that time and emphasis and financial contributions to making spay and neuter and other access to care affordable?
Well, exactly. And I have a theory about this. We are at point A right now, and point A is that we have too many animals, too many dogs and cats. And now the small animal and the exotic bird trade, we have an overpopulation of every single animal that could be called a pet. Point C is where we all want to be, and that is to end or decrease the euthanasia just because there's no space, just because too many of them. But what the live release no kill people want is to go from point A to point C without going through point B. And point B is spaying and neutering, teaching kindness. I'm sorry, not every home, not every person deserves an animal. I've been a humane investigator too long. I know what's out there on the streets. And so, yes, we are going to screen homes. No, we are not going to turn away animals. They have, Best Friends has the prettier phrase, no kill. But those two words erase everything that is every kind of humane treatment that the animals deserve. If a shelter turns away an animal, where on God's green earth do they go? They go in alleyways, they go in fields, they go into hoarder homes, they go into
Unfortunately,
backyards where people
they
just chain them up.
they get thrown off of bridges or they get run over. I mean, there's some horrible things where people are denied services to get rid of the animal, so they take it upon themselves. Have you looked at the smart shelter phrase that we came up with, the saving more animals responsibly together, where it doesn't focus on arbitrary numbers or live release rates or any of that stuff?
I did, and I'm in.
All right, Paulette. I want to play devil's advocate here. Now, with that being said, I want to preface this with I'm on board with you. I dislike the no kill movement. I dislike the phrase. I think that it could be much better done. I agree with the smart sheltering. Okay. But playing devil's advocate here, what do you think is stopping your shelter from increasing the live release percentage?
See, we had been so successful for so many years doing that.
Okay.
And then the pandemic hit and everything went wacky. And it's been over the last 3 or 4 years that our numbers started skyrocketing again. And we could immediately, starting at 8:30 tomorrow morning, do several things to get our live release rate better. We could stop euthanizing animals for owners if they do not have money for a veterinarian to do it.
Oh, good God.
So
Okay.
We could,
can we pause right there
we,
though? Can we pause right there? Because what you
yes,
bring up is it's a service that animal welfare provides, or a lot of them do. But
yes.
is that a category that Best Friends doesn't want you to calculate, or just not even offer the service?
It automatically
Yeah.
gets counted in their numbers.
Yeah, so
Because if they've taken in the animal, because they have to take the animal in as a, and I know this because our shelter does it. The animal has to come in as a surrender because you have to track the medications.
that is correct. But and in Virginia, you have to have an intake. So those animals are on our intake, and they are in our euthanasia numbers. However, and I have received complaints from shelter staff in the no kill managed intake realm, who have called me so upset because they said, we have dying kittens here, but we were told we couldn't euthanize them for another 4 days because our euthanasia numbers for this month would be skewed. Wow. So if they die on their own in the shelter, then you don't have to count them. You count them in the died in facility, and the no kill algorithm will take those out. So yeah, we
So
could
what you're
stop
saying
It's a
is
that.
broken system.
allow
It's
animals
a
to
fucking
suffer,
broken system.
allow animals to suffer in your care, so we can have an arbitrary number that looks good on paper.
Yes. And this is why we're hated too, because we know these stories. Just a few weeks ago, and this is one of thousands of stories throughout the year, okay? There was a little yellow kitten brought to us, probably only about 5 to 6 weeks old. And he was being eaten alive by maggots on the inside. You could hear them, and you could see them coming from every orifice. He said, I called blank, blank, blank shelter in my locality, but I was told that that animal was going to die. So just put it back where I found it and let nature take its course. No, sir. You bring that animal to us, and we are going to send that little kitten to its eternal reward. And we are not going to feel guilty about doing that.
No.
I wouldn't even do that. So when I was out in the field doing patrol, animal control stuff, if it was wildlife and it was suffering, I always euthanized it. Like I wouldn't even do that. And I know that shouldn't be a difference, but like that sounds horrible just to leave any animal that is being eaten alive where it stands, so then it can continue to suffer when we have the means to relieve that suffering. I mean, that's the whole definition of euthanasia. Back to Bishop's question, because I think
Okay.
I was just dumbfounded by some of these. Like it blows my mind that they count your owner surrender euthanasias. Is there, let's say they just wiped the slate clean and they were like, Paulette, we want to help you. Maybe even under a different name, like they're not using No Kill or Best Friends. Like what could an organization with that kind of money and that kind of influence do to actually help your shelter?
Well, we spend $50,000 a year on spaying and neutering programs. But if we could have our own clinic at the shelter, that would be wonderful, with a veterinarian on staff. And it's like I told the woman in November, the best thing you can do to get our euthanasia rate down is to stop telling shelters to turn away animals, or putting them on waiting lists, or charging an owner. Open the doors. Open every shelter's door for 2 years. The numbers will be more manageable, and it would be better. Money to help injured animals, and included in our numbers, to your point, Ashley, our euthanasia numbers also include, since we're the public shelter, once an animal control officer in Danville picks up an injured animal and takes them to a veterinarian, and the veterinarian euthanizes that animal because that animal was in the custody of animal control, that euthanasia also shows up on our records. Some animals that never even come through our shelter. And could we lie about that? Sure. Could we leave them off our report? Sure. But why don't we do it? Because you obey the law, you obey the regulations, and besides, shouldn't that animal count for something?
Well, and
That
if anybody's actually looking for it, then you have record of it in your system to be able to connect an owner with it.
bingo. And that happens. People call, and I have to be the one to say, I'm so sorry. But yes, animal control did pick up an animal and took it to the veterinary clinic, and they did euthanize it. I'm so sorry. And that we pay the bill, and the number goes on our records.
There was a,
However, oh, I'm sorry.
no, go ahead and finish your thought there.
However, I will say in 2023 and in 2024, multiple times, we do have to make difficult decisions because we are being overrun. I mean, for a month and a half, we were getting something like 30 animals a day. Those, what do we do? People would say, well, don't accept them. All right. So then you have 30 animals where? Where are they going to go? There's no
Maybe
magical place.
maybe they make more animals, and now you have even more problems in the community.
Bingo.
I
Bingo.
read an article, or it was either an article or it was a one of our listeners actually sent it to me. It might have been a report for council, but in El Paso, Texas, they were from what I read, they were being told to basically it's all a numbers game. So a Chihuahua, for example, would count as one dog, and then a dog that may be 20 to 30 or 40 pounds counts as two dogs, and any dog bigger than that counts as three dogs. And so that way, yeah, it was a numbers thing. So that way, whenever they would get a big dog out of the shelter, that counts as three animals, three dogs, in order to help skew the number. And I just don't, I do understand it. I shouldn't sit here and say I don't understand it. I do understand where this is going. And it's, they've created a buzz with the community on not just people in our industry, but people that don't necessarily understand our industry. And it helps fund projects, whatever.
That's the worst part.
Yeah. It funds projects. Now, I can't say all of their projects are bad. Like I'm sure there are some projects that are, I mean, I'll talk about one really quickly. And we've had Scott Giacopo on the show, who does their animal control field service consulting, or whatever his position title is. And sorry, Scott, if you're listening, I don't know. But one of the things that they do is they'll give away microchip scanners to animal control agencies throughout the country that need them, so they can, not have to bring an animal into the shelter. So I get that from that level. Like, no, if we're able to do an RTO in the field, shoot. When I started doing this job back in 2010, 2011, 2011 specifically, when I worked for Denver, we weren't even allowed to do RTOs, even if we could figure out where the dog lived, because that was just the how animal control was in that time. And so we've evolved to being able to use, man, I've done RTOs by like literally reaching out to somebody on Facebook Messenger, because that's the only way I could figure out who they were, and got a dog back that way. So, there's ways to do it, and nobody wants to bring him into the shelter. I don't understand, and this is what I really want to understand, is why there has to be divisiveness in a community where we're trying to help people and help animals. I just don't get it.
I agree. We of course have free microchip clinics, and when a veterinarian first approached me about microchips, I thought, oh really? Well, but keep in mind, I'm the person that said, oh, I don't know that we need to have email. I can't imagine email would ever take over a phone call. Yeah, maybe I am old, right? But now we do free microchip clinics for people. We had one yesterday, and we have bought Animal Control the scanners, and we do everything in our power. But as I was told by one of the proponents, Paulette, you are old news. The Danville Area Humane Society is irrelevant, and it's time for someone else to take over. And I thought, we're the ones that got the anti-tethering ordinance at a time when when very few localities had it. We did that. We got the mandatory spay neuter if adopting from a shelter. We helped pass that law. We're not irrelevant. What we are is experienced. One of the first experience I had with the animal shelter in Danville, I was a freshman in high school. We had moved here when Daddy retired, and one Sunday evening, someone had found a litter of kittens, and they came to our house, and my father got together with some of the other men in the neighborhood, and one of the men brought the kittens up and put them in a box in front of the shelter door. And when I got to school the next day, I called the shelter because I was so upset. And the officer went out and he saw the empty box. And he said, I'm sorry, but we don't accept kittens. So whenever I hear people say, you need to have the progressive program of not accepting stray cats, I'm catapulted back to that day in 1968 when the shelter here did not accept cats. And I'm thinking, it's not progressive. It is taking us back to the 50s and the 60s when shelter doors were closed. I'm, you know, best friends maybe is finding out that a Southern postmenopausal woman is maybe not the one to go up against because
Paulette,
she
you give them hell.
she ain't gonna go quietly, okay?
Oh,
One of the other things that we didn't talk about, and again, every shelter's different, every community is different.
Correct.
You actually have rabies in your domestic pets in Virginia. Like it's not very common west of the Mississippi for whatever reason to see it in our domestic pets, but east of the Mississippi, it's still a thing. So that's important that you do play the public safety aspect of this world. I mean, we have to make sure that we wouldn't want rabid animals or rabid people, like that's a very important uh, service that's provided. And so if there is a sick animal, we have to, I mean, rabies is not curable. So we have to, I mean, that's an animal that has to be put to sleep. So
Absolutely. And we have had actually a rabid cat come to the shelter. An elderly woman was feeding a colony of cats, and one bit her on the foot. So the animal control officer brought that cat to us on the 10th day of the rabies quarantine. That cat turned, I've never seen anything that creepy. Turned out to be rabid. All of our employees that had already had the pre-exposure had to get the post-exposure. All of the it was big news in Danville. There was trapping, and then 2 years ago, a fox bit I think 3 people around Walmart parking lot where people were feeding cats, and the fox was rabid. So animal control officers had to trap those cats, and then it was all Paulette Dean wants to do is kill those cats. Well, I just don't want your child to be killed by rabies.
yeah. Or have you go through the expense, because I don't know what it's like there, but I can tell you here in Wisconsin, it's $7,000 to $10,000 for the immunoglobulin vaccine. That's
Yes.
just the first of 5.
Mhm.
So
Yeah,
you can
very
even say
expensive.
that word is impressive.
I know. I was very impressed.
it's the vet tech in me.
You know who'd be really happy if she's listening is Kelly Tyson from Humane Educators of Texas. She's big on rabies. I think she's big on rabies.
No, no,
Or maybe it's
Tabitha
Is
is.
it Tabitha?
Yeah,
Well, whatever. They're both big on
Rabid Tabby.
rabies.
Rabid Tabby. Tabitha teaches the class.
Well, Paulette, I feel like your story hasn't really been told. Like there's so much that goes on, and we've already made it, pretty much through the entire show. What are some things you want our listeners to know? I think it's important that you're supported by us. We want to make sure that you have an opportunity to get your story out there. But what are some things that you'd really like for our listeners to know?
Number one, animals are not numbers, and they should not be treated as numbers. Number two, the only way to decrease euthanasia is to decrease the population and the neglect of animals. And number three, can we all just be a little kind? If you love animals, what's wrong with loving the other human that loves them too? Bottom line.
Yeah.
I can't say anything else after that. I really appreciate
No.
you taking the time to talk about it, and we're here to support you and your endeavors. And if you need anything, just let us know. And we want to make sure that our listeners can check out our website. That's keepithumane.com. What is your shelter's website for people if they want to check it out?
DAHSINC.com, or on Facebook, Danville Area Humane Society, VA.
Okay. Maybe people want to donate and help you help animals. I think at the end of the day, like you just said, having that ability to spay and neuter or to provide care when care may not be affordable. I mean, that's how that's how we're going to stop this issue of overpopulation. Like you said, there's A, B, and C, and it looks like we're just going A to C, and that's causing more issues than needed. So we really thank you for taking the time out today. It sounds like you're dealing with a lot, so we appreciate your willingness and really just your candidness about everything. Is candidness even a word?
Yes,
It is.
Okay, cool.
for once.
Well, as always, we like to say thanks for listening.
And help people.
Help animals and keep it humane. Oh, really quick. I was in the airport on the way to wherever I am right now, and the TSA person saw my book bag and they were like, keep it humane, Maine. And they didn't even know. They didn't even know.
Yes. That's awesome.